Aloha! We are back with another Adventures with a Psychic. I want to introduce myself. My name is Kimo. I am a Kanaka Maoli Hawaiian High Seer. What does that mean? It means that for me, when I'm tuned in, the whole entire world looks like nothing but frequency. Nothing but frequency and vibrancy. All these energies. And I'm not always tuned in. But when I am tuned in, it looks like all these vibrations of movement of color and energy moves from the buildings to the people to the plants behind us over there. And I utilize that ability to then tune in further. So I use that ability to look at spirit energy evidentially. Can you hear all this music in the background? It's Veterans Day. So right now, all these paraders are walking past us and I'm like marching to the beat of my own drum. Anyway, distraction. So I use this ability to not only communicate evidentially to spirit, but I also use it to do medical work. When I'm working with doctors and surgeons and neuroscientists, being able to see what's going on inside of the body and help them find locations of things that are happening inside of the brain or the heart or in the liver, things like that. So I am going to spend a little bit of time today talking to you about some of the things that I look for when I'm just out and about and when I am tuned up. So the thing with today, we're going to be looking way, way, way down deep into the soil of where we're standing. Right now I'm in the middle of, where are we at? Where am I? I'm in Bryant Park. So right now I'm in Bryant Park, which is about just under 10 acres of property between 5th and 6th Avenue, which is also called Avenue of the Americas, between 42nd and 40th. And it's a beautiful location. But we are going to spend some time today going down into the soil, talking about what it looks like for me, visually, vibratorily, frequency-wise, and I hope that another archaeologist or historian can watch this and help give us some evidence of things actually going on. So, Jake, are you ready? Oh, this is Jake, my cameraman. Come follow me. So I asked Jake to stop for just a moment because this magical door, on the other side of this door, going over this way down towards the west side, is an exhibit. On this side of the structure, right inside of there, is an exhibit of something that has to do with childhood. Now, I'm going to ask to see if you can tune in. So what I want you to try to do is quiet your mind for a moment, whatever that means for you. You know, put your feet on the floor, lie down, listen to soft music. And I want you to see if you could try to geolocate yourself to be where I'm standing right now and try to tune in to what's behind me right through these doors. I'm going to give you a few breadcrumbs. The exhibit back there is a child exhibit based on something that is a part of our history now. Not just American history, but English history as well. I'm going to give you a few more breadcrumbs. The name of the exhibit houses about 4 different characters. You getting it? So focus on, do you see a shape in your mind's eye? Do you see an abstract color? Do you get a weird smell? Do you see patterns? What do you see? Give it another moment. I'll give you a few more breadcrumbs. The exhibit behind me has stuffed animals in it. So did you get a stuffed animal in your mind's eye? Or something similar to that? Let me give you some ideas of the stuffed animal. There's a little tiger-like animal. There's a little mule-like animal. A little piglet-like animal. And a little bear called Winnie the Pooh. So the Christopher Robin exhibit is actually behind me through these doors over here on this side. The actual dolls and toys that Christopher Robin himself used and played with and created a whole story behind. Did you get close? Did you get close? Christopher Robin, that's so sweet. I love that. So as we walk down the upper north side of Bryant Park, let's talk about some of the history of Bryant Park. Way before it was Bryant Park, way before it was called Reservoir Park, which is one of the original names. So Bryant Park is one of the original Potter's Fields. Now, if you watch our former video, we were in Washington Square Park, which was one of the Potter's Fields, which means that there were many, many bodies that were buried there. What is a Potter's Field? It is a place where unclaimed bodies are laid to rest. So Washington Square Park, if you watch that video, had over 25,000 bodies that were buried there. This one, you ready for this one, Jake? Over 100,000 bodies. Jake's face. There are over 100,000 bodies buried in this park, meaning that through plague and through pandemic, way, when all the bodies were unclaimed, they were laid to rest here. And they discovered that there was over 100,000 bodies here when they were excavating the land. And they took up a lot of those bones and they threw them in the river. So that's so wild. Now here's what's going to get really, really wild. If you quiet your mind, and some of you might be, tuning into your abilities, if you quiet your mind and really tune in, the soil here, it doesn't sing. The soil here has like a compaction feel to it, more than likely because there's a lot of bodies here that kind of died from pandemics and plagues. So the soil here, though the soil has been tilled over and over and over and over and over again, the original soil, it doesn't sing. It doesn't feel good. But now we're going to take a little adventure into the western part of the park. Let's go. So just a small little historical moment. So when the park went from Reservoir Square, which was let me see, I think it was 1847 is when it was named Reservoir Square. It was renamed Bryant Park after William Cullen Bryant. This poet sitting behind me. Doesn't that sound like a vampire name? William Cullen Bryant. Buried here. Actually, I think, if memory serves me right, William Colin Bryant was one of the original people who had a lot to say in the building of Central Park. Maybe we should talk to him about Seneca Village. You know what that is? Right? If you don't know what Seneca Village is, we should do that on another one, Jake. It's the original black settlement that was there. So, we got words with him. So right behind me is the western part of Bryant Park. Now, the western part of Bryant Park during the majority of the year is actually just grassy knoll. We also have a part of Fashion Week that happens here in the summertime. All the open theaters are over here, but during the holiday season, right now it's autumn in New York. Jake and I have been singing that song, Autumn in New York. Do like 6 seconds of the song, Jake.
Autumn in New York.
So during the holiday season, all the vendors come out, and it's just such a wonderful time to be here. There's ice skating behind me. You're fine. You want to be interviewed? So there's ice skating behind me. There's the holiday tree behind me. And here's another really awesome, interesting fact. When they built the library that is currently right in front of me, when they built the library in 1911, directly underneath where the park is right now is where all the library stacks are. There are over 2.5 million books in the library stacks underneath the grassy knoll. Did you know that, Jake? 2.5 million. In fact, if you are a Ghostbusters fan, Jake has never seen it, so shame him. Shame him on social media. So in the original film Ghostbusters, when he goes down to the stacks, he's actually underneath where we are now. That's where that scene was filmed. Ready? Get him! So I want to stop and pause for a second. So how do I know the information I know about the history? I get curious. I'm always curious. So for me, when I came to New York in 1998, my very first year that I moved here, when I was here at the park, it felt very hollow-like to me. Now, New York feels hollow anyway. Emotionally, it's so hollow. But vibratorily, the land underneath me feels very, very hollow and different than normal New York City land. There's always like subway and aqueducts and pipes and more, but this one felt very, very different. So then I did research. So then through the research, you realize, oh, that hollowness is because there's still activity happening underneath us because of all of the books, all the stacks. People are still moving underneath us to go access all of those different stacks. So that's just kind of how I find out the information that I find out, and I get curious about it. Let's go find out some more stuff. So we're standing in front of Goethe, and there's only one reason why I want to come in front of the statue over here, in front of Goethe. Hi, little one. So Goethe rewrote, I love this right now. You have no idea how much I love this. Goethe rewrote the book Faust. Now, Faust is a story that was written in Germany in the 1400s. Goethe rewrote the book many years later, hundreds of years later. Why is that important to know? Because in the story of Faust, Faust sells his soul to the devil, makes a pact with the devil to gain more human knowledge and some riches so he could be well known. And the reason why I bring that up is that story, that Faustian story, is still told to this day. One of the reasons why people believe that you can actually sell your soul to the devil, because they think of it as a tangible experience. But technically, we're not in a session right now, but technically soul is it's intangible because it is not physical. Soul is nebulous. Soul is not some fractionated something that you can sell. to the devil. And also the devil is a whole other thing that we can talk about another time. But thanks to Goethe, who perpetuated the story, there's lots of films and shows and plays built off of that story about Faust. And the birds have not been kind to you, Goethe. Neither has time. So we're in front of New York City's public library, and there's a few things I want to talk about this library. If you tune in, if you quiet your mind, not like these busy, crazy streets right now, but if you quiet your mind, I want you to try to tune into something with me. Below me, in the ground, there are really interesting sounds, residual sounds. And in those sounds, I'm going to give you a little bit of a clue, but start by calming your mind, sitting quietly, relaxing. Underneath me are residual sounds of some kind of elemental nature. So think about that for a second. Crackling of wood, water-like energy. What do you hear? Try to tune out all the noise around you. What do you hear? Do you hear water? When I was here in the early 90s and I first came to this area of Bryant Park, so we're on the eastern side of Bryant Park where the public library is. When I did research, I found out that prior to this library being built in 1911 was this area called Reservoir Park. It was called Reservoir Park because the entire area where the public library is from the north side all the way down to the south side was a really large reservoir. And they built it in the style of like Egyptian big square coliseums. Jake is about to get hit by a car. So what they did in Reservoir Park is they housed all of New York City's drinking water. So in 1847, when the reservoir was built, they had all of the river coming down from Westchester from what was called the Croton River. The Croton River. So there's a Croton aqueduct that came from Westchester, came down this way. There's still a residual aqueduct underneath me, and they had all the water here. Now, the height of the reservoir was about the same height as this public library now. And in the Victorian time era, it was a great big square enclosure. You could walk up the enclosure and then walk around as a promenade and look down into the water. And that's what housed New York City's predominant water during the Victorian time era. And it stayed like that only for about 5 decades. And about 1890, they tore it down to build this library. If you quiet your mind, you can still hear some of where the aqueduct was. They rerouted it in 1890. And in fact, some of the original infrastructure is still underneath the library. If you go into the library, you can find certain corners that still show some of the original stonework that was used to have New York City's reservoir, which is why it was called Reservoir Park until they renamed it Bryant Park after William Colin Bryant, the vampire of New York City. Total vampire. Wait, so this is just a total riffing moment. Jake and I are walking past this, and we're looking at some of the detail, like this little face, and then the turtle, and the ropes, and there's like a little vase that this person over here is holding. And because I'm insatiably curious, every single time I see something, my abilities want to activate, and they want to become investigative. And all of a sudden, what I can see when I'm looking at the structure is the designer who built it. When they were building it, they had it looks like a muse. So the muse would be female for them, and the muse would be someone that they had a relationship with, but they were also married at the same time. Why is that important to know? I would love it. I have no idea what the history of this is. And if you are a New York historian, if you know who built this, some of the information about that, please send a message in the comments. Let me know, because I love to find the evidence of what I'm able to see. You naughty, naughty person. You naughty person. Okay, so I want to talk about something, another one of these little psychic tests that we're doing. Once again, environmentally, I want you to pay attention to one of your senses. In this specific area, hundreds of years ago, something happened. So in 1853, there was a very large structure that was built here where Jake and I are standing called New York Crystal Palace. And I want you to pay attention to how you think that Crystal Palace ended up like being destroyed or demolished. What happened to the Crystal Palace? It was only standing for approximately 5 years. Pay attention to your senses, calm your mind. What do you get? Do you get a sound of it crashing? Do you get a sound of, some kind of demolition? Do you get a smell? What do you get? Try to trust it. Try to tune into exactly what it is. Ready? You get to smell the fire? It burned. Jake's eyes. It burned down. The New York City Crystal Palace burned down. It was built in 1853, I think, for the exhibition of, of all nations is what it was called. Really, really large, gorgeous structure that spanned this whole entire area. And when the fire broke out, looking for a historian, the fire looks like it broke out in this area over here, and then it shot to the very, very top really, really fast. Hi, I love your glasses. Yeah, you can call. Hi, welcome. Can I ask you a real question? Why did you choose to wear those glasses?
Because I look like a diva.
You are one. I'm a psychic, and everything for me is color. So I actually want to know why you wore those. Truly, can I do a little something with you really quick? So when I look at, is this your mom? Yeah. Is she always like this? I like her. So when I look at your color, you look yellow to me, right? And when I see yellows, and tell me if I'm right on, okay? When I look at yellows are individuals who do really good with like big moments of joy. Like I like to find like that's what we're gonna do tonight. We're gonna do that this weekend. Then we're gonna do this the next day. They're really good at joy-filled moments. Is that how she is? Yeah, you're yellow.
So guess what?
What? Tell me.
We're from Detroit.
Okay, you're visiting.
And I'm taking my daughters on a one-day trip to New York.
Just today?
So let's do it.
So I love it so much. I love that. Anyway, that was the end. So, and that's the Crystal Palace. Did you get a smell? So when it burned, I think it started to burn in this area over here, which would be towards the south side of the park. You can come park. And then it looks like the flames kind of shot up towards the very center of the building. So historians, please tell me if I'm spot on. Where are we going to now? We have left the park. We're making our way down towards Battery Park, the very southern tip of New York City. Why? There's a place that I want to show you. Now, some of the interesting things when it comes to Battery Park, I've actually only been there a few times out of my entire stay of being here in New York because it feels very dark to me. I don't mean dark in energy. Well, a little kind of dark in energy, but dark in color. There's not a lot of sunlight down there because the buildings are so tall, so the sun doesn't actually creep through very easily. But when you go down towards Battery Park, and again, because I feel certain things in the land and the energy around me, then I do a lot of historical activations and try to learn about why things are the way that they are. Hi, Brooklyn. So when we go down towards this area, there is a feeling that feels like a drain. And if you watch one of our episodes before, we kind of talk about drain energy, where it feels like the energy in the body leaves and you get a little nauseated and the body feels like all of a sudden I'm a little lightheaded. Well, there's a really large drain area down at Battery Park, which is one of the original holding areas for immigrants as they were coming to this place. So naturally, there's going to be that feeling of anticipation. Sometimes anticipation kind of drains the body a little bit. It's like overactivation of what's going on because the adrenaline glands. But this area has that. Now, historically, some of the things to know about this area is that it's what the Dutch, who were some of the original colonizers, when they were meeting with the Native American tribes, which I believe they were called the Manhattan tribes. Manhattan, did you know that, Jake? The Native Americans called it Kapsi. And I think that Kapsi translates into rocky ledge, because originally, before all the buildings were here, was this great big rocky ledges, and technically there was like little teeny fjords in the area, but that ended up going away because we built on top of that. So we are going through Dumbo. This is the Dumbo Bridge, which is an acronym. It stands for Down Under the Manhattan-Brooklyn Overpass. And in this area between the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge, right here next to me, how beautiful that is, there's a very large drain there. Very, very large drain. In fact, it's one of the noisiest areas of the city because it's the convergence of all that traffic, and it's right underneath that subway system. So the people who live there, they have to have really strong double-paned windows, but there's also a huge noise complaint that happens over there. One of the reasons of that, besides it being a bit of a drain area, is that if you energetically tune in, there is a vortice underneath that area, and vortices are actually very, very large. Very, very loud. When you tune into the sound of vortices, it sounds like constant noise, constant traffic, without it actually being about cars. So if you can see, this area over here is one of the original ferry houses right over here. You see this beautiful yellow and green building here? Isn't that beautiful? See? Governor's Island Ferry, which is still being used to take everyone to Governor's Island. So stupid. Welcome to the dark side of the city. So if you look, it's so dark here. There's no sunlight here because the buildings are so tall and the streets are so narrow that there's just not a lot of sunlight. But I want to show you something. We're standing in front of France's Tavern. Now, why do I want to come here? France's Tavern is one of the oldest taverns in all of New York City. So the original tavern was built in about 1671. It was established and incorporated around 1760, I think 1761 or 1767, one of those years. But one of the things that it's well known for, besides being the oldest bar in New York City in Manhattan, is that a lot of our presidents have been here, including our very first president, George Washington. So George Washington had a lot of his little soiree parties, meetings here. This is before the Revolutionary War. Long time ago. If you are not American and you're watching this, you're saying, who is George Washington? George Washington was the person who invented the washing machine, right? Is that it? No, he's the one that had an apple fall on his head. No, that was Newton. He's the person who invented Apple. That's what it was. So there are various aspects of this tavern, and we're going to go inside. So there's the museum here behind me, which has a lot of artifacts from that time era. If you are an individual who is tuning into your clairtangency, which is your ability to touch. So what is clairtangency? Clairtangency is your ability to touch objects or information and receive profound feedback, quick feedback that sticks inside of your memory because of the reason that you are touching it or because you're in the approximation to it. So those kinds of individuals who are very tangent, tactile, kinesthetic, everything is very tangent for them, they get a lot of information from places like this. Now, you'll find, depending on the kind of clairtangent that you are, you'll walk into a place like this, either get very excited about it, like me. I'm one of those kinds of clairtangent individuals. Oh my gosh, can you imagine who was playing with this or touching this or who owned it? Or you might be a clairtangent by proximity. What does that mean? That's the terminology that I use to describe someone who walks into a place like this, overwhelmed, feelings of anxiety, because all the information, all the history somehow actually influences and makes an impact on the way that you feel. Oh my God. You did it. So we're about to go inside of the tavern. We're not sure if we can film inside of there, so let's just do a really quick thing before we walk in. If you are working on your ability to divine or to sense information by touch, take a moment, try to sense where I'm at. I'm at the very, very bottom of Manhattan right now. And behind me, behind this brick wall has been refacaded recently, but behind this brick wall is going to be the tavern from 1671. So see if you can tune in. A little bit of feeling. Do you feel pressure? Do you feel a sense of unawareness? Do you feel someone sitting on a bar like this, waiting for someone to come? This better not be an audition video. So let's go inside and see what we can find. So we're sitting at the bar. We actually already ate. So we didn't film eating because it was a little bit too chaotic, but we're sitting towards the very back of France's Tavern. And for me, when I tune into where would George Washington be, George appears, the energetics of like thought process appears to be towards the back. I don't think that we're in the actual area. I think it was actually a little bit more beyond where this wall is. I don't know if we can go over there beyond that wall. The tavern is huge. There's lots of different various rooms, but the residual of like that kind of old planning, needing to be on top of everything energy that has a lot of people and weight behind it comes over there. So I'm going to make an assumption if I try to tune into what that energy is. Again, historians, if you're watching, please give me feedback. But technically, we're just kind of close. Fun, right? So we have just left France's Tavern. You guys, the food. No, it was good. It's really busy in there, probably because it's a big tourist attraction. Now, it's the interesting thing about it is they do have a lot of old history, but the history in there isn't so much about like the artifacts that they have in there. It's mostly about what's in the floorboards, believe it or not, because the floorboards in there, I think that some of them are relatively new. Do you hear that, Jake? It's Batman. I think Batman's he's got a small ego. What? Anyway, So we did find some forms of residual energy in there. I'm looking for like old spirit residual energy. I didn't do a big tune in while I was in there because it was just so busy, and I don't really feel like it's appropriate to do it in there when there's a whole bunch of other people in the space. So besides all that, I want to offer a big thank you. Thank you for watching. Me and Jake had a fun time today, just kind of walking around the city, doing our thing, cracking jokes, and I'm glad that you're here. If this is of interest of you, please like and subscribe, and in the comments, tell me where you want us to go next. Anywhere. Right, George?
That's right.